What's up, everybody? Russell Simon here for the first special playoff recap edition of Simon Says on the Mark, and obviously much of the discussion is about the Giants-Falcons game that finished, and with the wild-card round of the NFL playoffs coming to an end soon, I wanted to take a look back at Saturday's games, where the Texans beat the Bengals 31-10, and the Saints opened it up in the second half and beat the Lions 45-28. And while they definitely were not as good as last year's Seahawks-Saints game, where Marshawn Lynch broke 1,000,000 tackles and scored one of the best touchdowns in NFL history, and then Nick Folk's last-second field goal lifted the Jets over the Colts, there were a ton of things I got out of yesterday's playoff doubleheader, and you've obviously got to start with the quarterback. It's QB league, and with all respect to Aaron Rodgers, no one is playing as well as Drew Brees is right now. We saw another virtuoso performance from Drew Brees, who I think should be the NFL MVP this year. And you take a look at his last 4 games: 412 yards passing, 307 yards passing, 389 yards passing, and 466 yards passing. In 4 games, he had 466 last night. And I don't think I've ever seen a team, maybe the 2007 undefeated New England Patriots, they went down the field a ton, but the New Orleans Saints, the amount of deep balls that they throw, I mean, it's really remarkable, and that's all because of Drew Brees and the incredible accuracy he puts on all of his passes. He's playing at just an incredibly high level, and they've won 9 games in a row, and Brees, during the 4-game stretch, where he's thrown for 307, 389, 466, on and on and on, he's thrown for 17 touchdowns with only 3 interceptions. And so it's a high reward system with little risk. They're throwing a ton of deep balls, but obviously 17 touchdowns is working. We saw them go down the field 1,000,000 times yesterday, but Drew Brees is not throwing a lot of interceptions, so they're not putting themselves in situations where they're turning the ball over and being sloppy and losing, and they're playing at an incredibly high level. They've won 9 games in a row. The offense has scored in the last 4 games where Drew Brees has thrown for, the incredible passing numbers that he has. They've scored 45 points, 45 points, 45 points again, and 42 points. So they're scoring a ton, and you've got to love watching Brees play. I'm a Jets fan. I watch Mark Sanchez constantly, and everything Sanchez cannot do, throw short on the slants, throw deep at all, Brees does. And it's just incredible to watch. He's playing at such a good high level, and another thing you've got to like about Brees is how he makes everyone better around him, and that's something that I really took away last night. You watch guys like Marcus Colston and, Robert Meacham going down the field and catching a bunch of deep balls. Jimmy Graham, his tight end, benefits so much from Drew Brees, obviously, and the way Drew Brees has been playing and throwing the ball deep, it opens everything up on the offense. They throw a lot of screens, little dump-off passes that end up going for a lot of yards because the defense is just sitting back and waiting for another Drew Brees bomb. And I like Darren Sproles' pickup. You hear Mark talking about it a lot for New Orleans, and they're just totally in sync offensively, and we saw that last night, and they're going to be very dangerous going into the future of this NFL playoffs. And they're going to be playing San Francisco, obviously, next week. And for the losing side, the Detroit Lions, it was an ugly game, but it was really Calvin Johnson's coming out party. He really could be the best receiver in football. I mean, he's right up there with Andre Johnson, and Larry Fitzgerald had a down year on a pretty mediocre Arizona Cardinals team. But Johnson, 12 receptions, 211 yards, 2 touchdowns. And you saw a ton during the 3rd and 4th quarter when the Saints kind of started opening it up. On defense, they put a cornerback and then a safety covering him like it was basketball. I mean, he was like Michael Jordan, and then they were double covering him wherever he went on the field. And it just is a testament to how good and how dangerous he is. He can do so much on the field. We saw him grabbing jump balls deep last night, and we saw him catching little slants for 3 yards and just breaking tackles. He can do it all. He's big, he's fast. I mean, he's got great hands, and he really could be one of the best receivers in football. Matthew Stafford, he's got to love having a target that big, and he just dominated last night. I know it was a losing effort, but man, this is a Lions offense that really could be impressive for many years to come with Johnson. And then Stafford, of course, if he can stay healthy. And that brings me to my 4th point for something I took away from yesterday, and that was the emergence of the young quarterbacks. Dalton, Stafford, and even Yates, you could say, who had a very impressive game, really as a game manager. Stafford, obviously, was very good throughout. They were really competitive in the first half, and then Drew Brees kind of started pulling away when the Lions defense couldn't execute and kept dropping interceptions. But I thought Stafford looked very impressive. He dealt with the dome pretty well in the first half. He took some hits, but he was able to make a lot of plays, and this is obviously his third year, his first year really injury-free, and he can really throw it with the best of them. We've seen that in Week 17, obviously up in New England, where he threw for, I believe, over 500 yards, and it looks like he's going to be a very good quarterback for a very long time, and you talk about it with Detroit, and it's really clear that with Stafford and Johnson, they've got a nucleus of young talent, and if they can build on that, they could be very dangerous in an NFC. And if Stafford can keep progressing and not have a regression next year, a la Mark Sanchez, I could really see him turning into one of the premier passers in the league. I think he's definitely on that Matt Ryan level right now based on his performance this year. Eli Manning obviously a step above, but Stafford really impressed me. And I think the Lions could be dangerous for many years to come. But obviously it's not going to be this year. We look at the Saturday games and the games for next week. It's going to be the Saints at the 49ers. And even though, I'm loving the way the Saints are playing, I think this game could be very close. 49ers, obviously, home atmosphere, windy stadium, grass track. So I don't know how Drew Brees is going to be able to throw the ball 100 times going deep with the wind and all that. And I think the 49ers have a very good defense. They could make it very close, but I think the way they're going to be able to win is holding the ball for a lot of time. They've got to win the time possession, and they've got to play basically perfect football. That means not dropping interceptions, not having the sloppy play that Detroit had last night that was just a little too much, and they didn't execute well enough to win, and they didn't win. You've got to play at a really high level when you're playing New Orleans, and I think if the Niners can really hold on to the ball, they could have a chance at winning, but they're going to really have to play very well, obviously, and keep the ball out of Drew Brees' hands. As for the other game, it's going to be T.J. Yates against an incredible Ravens defense, and I really like the way Baltimore is playing, and it should be interesting to see how well they progress in these playoffs, and it's going to start with a Texans team that's very good. They've got a lot of weapons, but obviously I do not think they are good enough to beat the Ravens next week. All right, that's all the time we have for this week's show. We'll be back again next week with more NFL recap. I'm Russell Simon for Simon Says on the Mark. Guys, back to you.